Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
President Donald Trump began a very big legal battle. He filed a shocking lawsuit for $15 billion against the New York Times newspaper. This happened on September 16, 2025. Legal experts called this the largest money claim ever made by a president who is currently in office, against a major news organization. This action showed a strong increase in Trump's plan to change how media works in America, using the courts. The lawsuit was not only against the New York Times Company. It also included four important journalists: Suzanne Craig, Russ Buettner, Peter Baker, and Michael S. Schmidt. A book publisher, Penguin Random House, was also named. Trump's team said these groups tried to hurt his good name with false, malicious, and defamatory stories. He claims this damaged his 2024 presidential election campaign. It also made his image as a good businessman look bad. Trump's lawyers stated that the New York Times acted like a voice for the Democrat Party. They said the newspaper had a decades-long pattern of purposely hurting President Trump with lies. The lawsuit document is 85 pages long. It asks for a huge amount of money, which is more than the newspaper's total value, around $9.6 billion. President Trump said his aim was to make journalism honest again. President Trump shared news of the lawsuit on his social media platform, Truth Social. He called it the great honor to hold one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers accountable. He said the Times had lied about him, his family, his business, and his America First movement for a long time. He stated that the newspaper worked to destroy the United States. This lawsuit is a clear sign of his fight against what he calls radical left media. 2. The book and the articles. President Donald Trump's large lawsuit is mainly about two things: a specific book and 3 news articles. These publications, he claims, contained false information that hurt his image and his 2024 election campaign. The book is titled Lucky Loser. It was written by Suzanne Craig and Russ Buettner and published by Penguin Random House. This book suggested that President Trump did not build his own wealth. Instead, it claimed he inherited over $400 million from his father, Fred Trump. The book also argued that he later lost a lot of this money through failed business ideas. It said that luck and other people's efforts often helped him out of trouble. The book aimed to show a different picture of President Trump's business skills, going against his public image as a self-made billionaire. Besides the book, the lawsuit targets 3 articles published by the newspaper during the election period. The first article quoted General John Kelly, who used to work for President Trump. General Kelly said that President Trump might act like a dictator if he won a second term as president. He also said that President Trump met the definition of a fascist. The second article talked about President Trump's long history of problems and difficult situations. Its headline was, "For Trump, a lifetime of scandals heads toward a moment of judgment." This story listed many controversies that had followed President Trump throughout his career. The third article also focused on President Trump's popular TV show, The Apprentice. This piece, which took ideas from the Lucky Loser book, suggested that the show's producer, Mark Burnett, was more responsible for its success than President Trump. It questioned President Trump's real role in making the show popular. President Trump's legal team stated that these publications were released at a very important time during the election. They believe this timing was chosen to cause the most damage to his campaign. The lawsuit claims that the newspaper published these materials knowing they were false or with careless disregard for the truth. This, they say, caused President Trump significant financial losses and damaged his professional life. 3. The newspaper fights back. The New York Times quickly responded to the large lawsuit filed against it. The newspaper released a firm statement on a Tuesday, clearly outlining its position. It called the legal action baseless, meaning it had no real facts or strong legal reasons. The Times argued the lawsuit was an attempt to stop independent journalism from doing its job. Independent journalism is news free from outside control. The newspaper believed the lawsuit was meant to quiet reporters and discourage critical stories, aiming to silence important voices. The New York Times declared it would not be intimidated by this legal challenge. It made a strong promise to continue its work. The newspaper stated its dedication to finding and reporting the truth. It would do this without any fear or special favors. The Times also committed to defending the First Amendment rights of all journalists. These rights are vital because they allow the press to investigate and share information with the American public, ensuring news without government interference. Many legal experts specializing in the First Amendment supported the New York Times. These scholars and groups protecting journalism expressed deep concern. They viewed the lawsuit as a very serious threat to press freedom in the country. They also noted that such actions put the public's right to know important facts at risk. If journalists are scared to report fully, people will not get all necessary information to make decisions. These experts explained the lawsuit was part of a broader strategy. This strategy uses the legal system to attack critical news coverage of powerful figures. They warned this could lead to a chilling effect. This happens when journalists become afraid of costly legal battles, possibly avoiding publishing certain stories. Such fear could reduce vital investigative reporting and weaken the press's role as a watchdog. The newspaper's stand was crucial for upholding a free and open society. 4. A history of lawsuits. This big lawsuit against the New York Times is not a new way for Donald Trump to handle media. It is actually part of a larger plan. For a long time, he has used the courts to challenge news stories that he feels are unfair or critical of him. This approach shows a clear pattern in how Donald Trump deals with media organizations. He has had some success with these legal fights. For example, in July 2025, CBS's parent company, Paramount Global, made an agreement to pay him money. They paid $16 million to settle a lawsuit. This case was about how CBS had edited an interview on its show 60 Minutes. The interview was with Kamala Harris during the 2024 campaign. Donald Trump said the editing was not fair. The settlement even made 60 Minutes agree to publish full written records of future interviews with people running for president. This was a new and unusual step for a news program. Before that, in December 2024, Disney also agreed to pay Donald Trump. Disney is the owner of ABC News. They paid $15 million to end another lawsuit. This lawsuit was about comments made by an ABC News anchor regarding a past legal matter involving Donald Trump. As part of the agreement, Disney sent the money to support Donald Trump's future presidential library. They also issued a public apology. These past successes were very important. They showed Donald Trump that using lawsuits could work to get what he wanted from news organizations. These wins made him feel more confident in his strategy. Because of these past results, he felt stronger and more determined to file more lawsuits. This led directly to his current, much larger lawsuit against the New York Times. It highlights a continuing effort to influence how news is reported about him. He has continued this legal strategy, filing other major lawsuits. For example, he has also sued the Wall Street Journal and its owner, Rupert Murdoch, for $10 billion. That lawsuit is about a news report related to Jeffrey Epstein, which Donald Trump claims was based on a fake note. These actions show a consistent pattern of using legal battles against media outlets. 5. The cost of the war. The lawsuit demanded a staggering $15 billion. This was an exceptionally large amount of money, a sum rarely seen in such legal cases. To put this into perspective, this figure was much, much higher than the total market value of the New York Times Company itself. The newspaper's entire worth in the market was estimated to be around $9.6 billion. This meant that the amount President Donald Trump was asking for was almost double what the whole company was valued at. This extremely high demand clearly showed the serious financial threat that the lawsuit intended to create for the news organization. President Trump's legal team claimed that the negative news coverage from the newspaper had caused immense and widespread damage to his diverse range of businesses. He strongly argued that these articles directly hurt his business empire, affecting various parts of his finances. This included his media company, called Trump Media and Technology Group, which operates his social media site, Truth Social. Furthermore, the lawsuit specifically mentioned harm to his newer ventures in the world of digital money, known as cryptocurrency. For example, it claimed that his Solana-based meme coin and the World Liberty financial platform suffered because of the reports. These claims underlined the president's view that the paper's reporting had a direct financial impact on his holdings. President Trump suggested that the unfavorable coverage about his business history caused a sharp or precipitous drop in the stock value of Trump media. However, market analysts, who are experts in how the stock market works, pointed out that the value of meme coins often changes a lot or is notoriously volatile, even without news stories. After the news of this massive lawsuit became public, the stock price for the New York Times Company itself saw a small decline. It went down by about 2%. While this was not a huge fall, it showed that even a very big legal claim could have an immediate, though modest, effect on the company's financial standing in the market. The potential cost of this legal conflict was becoming very clear, not just for the newspaper, but also for the reputation of Trump's business dealings. 6. The law and the president. Many legal experts carefully looked at President Donald Trump's lawsuit. They discussed his chances of winning this very large case. Most of them agreed it would be very hard for him to succeed. They often referred to a famous Supreme Court case from history, New York Times versus Sullivan. This important decision was made in 1964. It created a high standard for public figures, such as a president, who want to sue for defamation. Defamation means publishing false information that harms someone's reputation. To win his lawsuit, President Trump would need to prove what is called actual malice. This is a difficult legal term. It means he must show that the New York Times either knew the information they published was false, or they acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true or false. In simpler words, he must prove the newspaper intentionally lied or didn't care about the truth. Proving this kind of clear intent is extremely challenging in any court case, especially for a public official. Jane Kirtley, a director at the University of Minnesota's Silha Center for the Study of Media Ethics and Law, explained that these lawsuits are common for President Trump. She stated his aim is often to drive media companies into bankruptcy or to make them silent through intimidation. Most legal scholars and media experts believe that President Trump's lawsuit against the New York Times is legally weak. Even a law professor like Jonathan Turley, who generally supports President Trump, publicly said that many of the president's media lawsuits lack merit. This means they do not have strong legal grounds. However, these experts also recognize that President Trump's actions show a different purpose. These lawsuits serve as a powerful tool for pressure and intimidation. Past settlements with other media companies, like Paramount and Disney, have shown that even lawsuits that are not legally strong can make news organizations change their reporting or avoid writing critical stories. As lawyer Adam Steinbach observed, "What gets rewarded gets repeated." This means that when such lawsuits lead to a win for Trump, he is encouraged to file more. This method can cause a lot of fear among journalists. First Amendment attorney Floyd Abrams, who worked on the Pentagon Papers case for the New York Times, called these media settlements an ominous blow to press freedom in our nation. Many people worry that such lawsuits could prevent the press from doing its job of reporting the truth about powerful leaders. So, the goal of these lawsuits might be less about winning a legal argument and more about stopping critical news stories. 7. A bigger attack on the news. The lawsuit President Donald Trump filed against the New York Times is part of a much wider plan. This strategy aims to control how news is reported and shared in America. It is not just about one newspaper. It is about changing the entire media landscape. President Trump has often spoken about his distrust of certain news outlets, calling them fake news. This legal action is one way he tries to influence what the public reads and hears. This way of acting creates something important called a chilling effect. This means that journalists and news companies become very careful or even afraid. They worry deeply about facing expensive and long lawsuits. Because of this fear, they might choose not to publish stories that are critical of powerful people, even if those stories are true. They might avoid looking into tough or sensitive topics. This makes it harder for the public to get all the facts and understand complex issues. The goal is to make reporting less aggressive and more favorable to those in power. President Trump has also used government groups to put pressure on news organizations. For example, he has used the Federal Communications Commission, known as the FCC. This agency checks and controls television and radio stations across the country. Under President Trump, the FCC has started to look into several news companies. They have questioned if these companies were fair in their reporting about the president. This kind of government action can make news organizations worried about losing their important broadcast licenses. Losing a license would mean they could no longer operate, which is a very big threat to their business and their ability to share news. Critics say that when large companies like Disney and Paramount paid money to settle previous lawsuits with President Trump, it made the problem worse. These companies settled rather than fighting a long legal battle in court. While settling might have seemed like a way to end a legal fight quickly and avoid more costs, critics believe these actions actually encouraged President Trump to bring more lawsuits. They argue that these settlements show that his strategy of using legal action against news companies can be successful. It acts as a reward, pushing him to repeat the same behavior. When big media companies choose to settle, it can weaken press freedom for everyone in the long run. It sends a clear message that powerful figures can use lawsuits, even those without strong legal bases, to silence or control critical reporting. This makes it much harder for journalists to do their job. Their job is to investigate, report the truth, and hold leaders accountable without fear of financial ruin. Many people who care deeply about free speech and the First Amendment say these settlements hurt the important role of a free press in a democracy. They believe that news organizations must stand strong against such pressure to protect the public's right to honest and complete information. 8. The future of a free press. This legal battle is much more than just a single lawsuit. It is a very important test for American democracy itself. The way this case ends will have effects that last a long time. It will change how the government and news organizations work together in the future. This situation makes us ask basic questions about power, about who must answer for their actions, and about what journalism's role truly is in a free country. One major worry is what experts call a chilling effect. This means that the fear of very costly lawsuits can make journalists afraid. They might stop looking into important stories or reporting critical facts about powerful people. If news companies face demands for billions of dollars, they might choose to be quieter. This happens even if the lawsuits are weak because fighting them costs so much money and time. Past events have shown this problem. When big companies like Disney and Paramount have paid money to settle legal claims, it has made the situation worse. These settlements can make people think that using lawsuits against the press is a good way to control what is reported. This makes it harder for news to stay truly free and independent. It can weaken the idea that the press should be able to speak freely. The lawsuit against the New York Times will help decide something very important. Can the press continue its job as a watchdog? A watchdog keeps an eye on the government and powerful people. It tells the public what is happening, even if the news is not good for those in power. Or will the huge money demands and legal threats make news organizations too scared to do this job? Will they be silenced by the risk of losing everything? The future of independent journalism depends on the outcome of this case. It is about whether news reporters can keep asking tough questions and sharing the truth without fear. If journalists cannot do this important work, it could change how people get their information. It could also affect how much they trust what they hear or read. This is a big deal for everyone and for how well our democracy works. Do you think a president should be able to sue news organizations for billions of dollars? Or is this a dangerous attack on free speech?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.